The Hard Count is presented by BetMGM. As y'all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this college football season. We'll be using their lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for all of you each week. Now, when you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use bonus code HARDCOUNT, and you'll get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how that works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code HARDCOUNT. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. Step 3, you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code HARDCOUNT when you sign up. Let's make this college football season 1 for the books. Let's make it legendary. Let's get to the show. Man, this is going to be a weird slate. Said it yesterday on our prediction show. But it's a weird year in college football, man. I mean, I was the guy for the longest time saying there's only 4 teams, maybe less than that can actually win the national championship any given year. Now you look down the barrel of October and into November, feel very differently. How are we processing this national title race, and how are we processing the glorious thing that is Week 7 in college football? Glad you asked. We're going to talk about it for give or take an hour or so on this platform, the On3 YouTube channel, on this show, The Hard Count, presented by BetMGM. It is Wednesday, October 8th. 2025, last one on the face of the planet. We're going to talk a lot today about Red River. I heard someone called Arch the first flop in college football, or even posed that question. Spoiler alert, I think that's a little bit of malarkey. But let's start here and cut up like Dr. Shin. How are we processing the national title race so far this college football season? I got a couple of categories I want to go through here, all right? The list that we had on last week's show of 13 teams has since been whittled down when it comes to serious contenders. However, we got a little Roy bus action that I want us to also take a quick visit to. But the top tier, the top category that I'm processing when it comes to this national title race so far through this college football season is the them versus the field. That's Oregon, Miami, it's Ohio State. Through 6 weeks of college football, those are the teams that I would feel the best about if I had a future down on any of those teams winning a national championship. I'll take it a step further. If you were to tell me I get those teams or the field, true to their tier name, I would probably take those teams. And that's not knocking anybody else across the country, but like those teams have showed me the most complete. Feel best about the quarterback spots for Oregon and Miami. I think Julian Sayin at Ohio State has been coming on in a phenomenal way. And also the defense for Ohio State looks like they are the best in college football right now. So with all that said, those filters I have with those teams as well makes me feel great about the way they're trending right now. Miami beating Florida State and Florida, and that Florida win is aging well. Oregon beating Penn State with a whiteout. We're not going to talk about how that one's aging. Ohio State beating Texas, and then the way they put it on Washington this past week, a couple weeks ago rather, the way they beat Minnesota. All those teams, the filters I have with them, I don't think it's I don't think there's anything fraudulent to them, is I guess the best way to put it. So Ohio State, Oregon, Miami versus the field. Feel the best about those teams right now, and obviously that's the way that most of the country feels as well, with them being the top 3 teams in just about every single ranking that you check. Now this next category, for me, there's no reason these teams can't win a national championship. That's Alabama, that's A&M, that's Indiana, and that's Texas Tech. I'm going to pause here for a second. Me naming those teams, a specific team I have to imagine, as I said it out loud, probably gave you a little bit of a emotional reaction, which is fine. It's college football. We're supposed to be emotional about this thing. But I would challenge whatever your reaction was it anything based in the past or based on their logo? Because I think those are the only things that I'm pointing to right now this college football season that make me feel like they couldn't win a national championship or would be the reason why you say they can't win a national championship. Like the pushback for A&M being in this category is, well, JD, they're Texas 8-4. They always have a strong start, or they're always a fun team to talk about in the preseason. Then we get to the actual games, they're not actually as good. Texas 8-4. That's the old A&M. This A&M seems to have handled every test and passed it with flying colors, and also handled the different spots they've been in, beating Notre Dame, and then coming back home and playing Auburn off a bye week where you probably could have gotten a little bit into your own press clippings and felt good about yourself. And then you go play Mississippi State at home yet again, and you handle that one pretty easily. Like, all I'm saying is A&M is not old A&M, all right? Alabama, you say, well, JD, the Florida State game. Yeah, the Florida State game was unsettling. I'll give you that. but I'm weighing that much less heavily than what I saw from them against Georgia, against against Vanderbilt, than the Florida State game. Like Alabama, for the most part, I think has shown they got a dude who can spin it at quarterback. I like where the defense is trending on the back end. I like the way that they have shown a different sense of urgency. Alabama, to me, this team, the way they played the last 2 weeks, there's no reason they can't. And then Texas Tech and Indiana. The pushback you get there is the logo. Like a lot of people, I guarantee you, haven't watched much, if any, Texas Tech this year. And they just say, oh, Big 12 team, that logo isn't familiar. I don't know a lot of players on their roster. Therefore, Texas Tech can't do it, right? Wrong. Texas Tech has a quarterback who can spin it, a front seven that can hang in any conference, much less the Big 12. Texas Tech can win a national championship. I'll say that right now. Indiana, same thing. Well, JD, last year, the soft schedule, right? And then when they played Ohio State, they got boat raced. Played Notre Dame, and they got beat in South Bend. And, it was a playoff game. Good for them for getting up for it. But, Indiana, come on, let's be serious. I'm being serious. I saw them seriously put pain on Illinois a couple weeks ago. Saw them beat Iowa, a line of scrimmage football team. Indiana is good up front on the defensive side. Top 10 in the country in sacks and tackles for a loss. Indiana's the real deal. Now, are they the real enough deal to where they can, go win a national championship? I don't see a reason why they can't, but we'll find out a lot more about them after they play Oregon. I digress. 3 teams that I think could win a national championship. I just have a desire to have it bake a little bit longer with these teams. Give me a minute on Georgia, Ole Miss, and Notre Dame. That's the next tier I want to talk through here. I like all these teams. I think you can see a world where all of these teams play for a national championship, all right? The thing is, though, I have a yeah, but with every one of these teams right now. Like Georgia, I love you. Yeah, I like Georgia, but that secondary gives me medical-grade anxiety. All right, what I saw against Alabama did not make me feel good. What I saw from them against Tennessee did not make me feel good. That secondary a little bit young now, a little bit of fresh blood in the secondary. Need to see them come into their own here in October and November. Ole Miss, they're kind of like the freshman phenom of March Madness right now. Like they're fun, they're exciting. In some ways, you could say they are new. They're definitely new based on the returning production from this year compared to last year. But the freshman phenom doesn't typically go win a national championship in March. Still, they're fun. I'm all here for Ole Miss. I want to see a little bit more from Trinidad Chambliss. Want to see a little bit more from this team over the course of their SEC schedule. Go beat Georgia again, and we'll have a different discussion. Now, for Notre Dame, can we just get you in the college football playoff? Because I think 10-2, you feel good about your chances. I don't think you feel great about your chances. I think 10-2 will get Notre Dame in, but that's the discussion we have to have here. It doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the College Football Playoff Committee thinks. So just give me a little bit longer on Notre Dame. I think that the way C.J. Carr is spinning it, I think they finally found their identity offensively. I think that defense is starting to come more into their own here over the course of the last couple of weeks. I like all those teams. I just need them to have a little bit more time in the oven before I pull them out and serve them up to the guests as a true college football playoff favorite, or national title favorite, I guess I should say, relative to this discussion. Now, this next tier is I won't give up on us. And if you've watched this show, you already know where I'm going with this. It's LSU. LSU, my preseason national champion. You lose to Ole Miss in embarrassing fashion, can't run the football. It's bad vibes across the board for me and Whit Weeks alike. Here's my thing, though. JD, you have them in this tier just because you picked them. Yeah, I do. Absolutely. You know why? Because my word means something. Commitment means something. Committed to LSU in the preseason. We're still committed to them right now. And guess what? This narrative, I think, is a little bit fugazi when it comes to LSU. You want to know why? Because they had a bye week after losing to Ole Miss. Reason why that matters. You lose to Ole Miss, everyone's saying LSU's this, LSU's that. Brian Kelly told you. And there was a lot of validity to that. In the 24 hours after that game, it was all fair game for my money. But then a week passes, and LSU, historically, would have played another game, right? I say historically, like LSU, if they didn't have that bye week, I think they have a chance then to at least change the narrative a little bit. Maybe not totally disrupt it, maybe not totally flip it on its head, but at least just add to that narrative in a positive direction if they were to play a game the Saturday after the Ole Miss game. They didn't, though. So that narrative, that LSU can't run the football, LSU, this, that, and the other is wrong with them, got to run for a little bit longer. So in a lot of people's minds now, you've sat with 2 weeks the idea that something is terribly wrong with LSU. And I hear you. The Ole Miss game points to that. But I'm not so sure that if LSU shows up with a run game with Kaiden Durham back in the lineup against South Carolina, they go for 4 yards a carry and Nuss looks really healthy. Wouldn't you know it? Everyone's back in on LSU. But guess what? That bandwagon has pulled out of the station. So maybe you're saying, JD, I don't want to see it on the bandwagon. You guys go ahead and take that as far as you want. I hear you. I understand. I'm just saying I'm not out on LSU. I'm committed to them. Words still mean something. In one game, that's a one-score loss on the road to a hot Ole Miss team. I'm not giving up just yet. I'm going to wait a little bit longer. So those are the teams that I think can actually go compete for and win a national championship, are those teams. But there's a couple of teams that I think just need to be accounted for. They're riding on the Roy bus. Oklahoma, Tennessee, Missouri. I want to see more. I have maybe stronger questions, maybe more questions than I do about these other teams. But I still think that with a strong October, we could be sitting here in the month of November having a very different discussion about those three teams. Like Missouri, sorry, like the Kansas win doesn't really do it for me when it comes to putting in the national title conversation. But a win over Alabama would. Spoiler alert, picked Missouri to beat Alabama. So go do that at the crib. But would be like a Heisman Trophy finalist, Ahmad Hardy, same thing. You go do that, okay, we'll have a different discussion about Missouri and you're off the Roy bus. But I need a more validating filter around the Tigers. Tennessee, watching them play ball is kind of like speeding on the highway. It's exhilarating. It's borderline fun, but it's not safe. Not a good way to live. Not something I would do all the time when it comes to the brand of ball they're playing. Defense has got to get healthy. Joey Aguilar, I love the gunslinger personality. I think you take that with the way he pushed the ball downfield, but we do need to ultimately cut down on some of these turnovers. Okay, we got to cut down on some of those turnovers for third Saturday. But I mean, the way that they're built with how they're running the football, how they push the ball deep, Tennessee can hang with anybody. They just make me a little bit nervous, but I think they're definitely a team that should they find a way to beat Alabama and should they find a way to get into that month of October, through the month of October, into the month of November, and be sitting there with, 10 wins at the end of the year, they're a college football playoff team, and I would not want to see them the first round of that college football playoff. I digress. Oklahoma, last team on the Roy bus here in no particular order. When is John Mateer coming back? It's a question for, message boards across the college football world and a one Dr. Shin, who did the surgery on his hand. When does he come back, and what version of him do we get when he gets back? And the last question there is, what's Oklahoma's record when he gets back? Like, what if Oklahoma has 2 losses when John Mateer is back? Are they going to win out and make the college football playoff? They could, but that's a tall ask. And so I hope John Mateer is back for Red River. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. And then on top of that, I need to see something from the running back room. Like, defense is awesome. I like the weapons. I love John Mateer when he's there. But if we don't have another way to run the football, we're going to get beat by somebody that we shouldn't get beat by. Hear what I'm saying? So for that reason, I like Oklahoma. I love Oklahoma. But if we don't get some of those boxes checked for us here, we're going to have a different conversation in the month of November than we would like to have. We'll be saying, gosh, man, if we just were able to get a better push up front, if we could just have somebody that could really carry the pill for us. I digress. So a lot of digressing, a lot of takes there, but to recap it for you here, versus the field like Ohio State, Oregon, and Miami, there's no reason that A&M, Bama, Indiana, Texas Tech can't win a national championship, and if you think that they can't, it's probably something to do with what they've done historically or something with their logo. Give me a minute on Georgia, Ole Miss, Notre Dame. I will not give up on LSU, and on that Roy bus, we got Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Missouri, all trying to get in the main line to get to the national title game and ultimately win that thing. Now, a team that I mentioned a moment ago was LSU. They got a big one this weekend, hosting South Carolina, 7:45 Eastern, SEC Network. South Carolina going to Death Valley. LSU, 8.5-point favorite. Interesting. 8.5's a lot for a team that just lost to Ole Miss. South Carolina looked pretty good against Kentucky before their bye week, so 8.5, kind of an eyebrow-raising line. What do we think about it? We'll unpack it right now. First things first, though, make sure you're subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. Second things second, and also could be first things first, depending on how you feel about this one. If you want to get to the game, Game Time is going to make sure that you have the best way to get that done. So if you're an LSU fan watching this, you're saying, JD, I'm more of just a tailgate guy. I'm just going to be outside the stadium. I'm going to watch all the games leading up to this one from, my sweet setup at our trailer or our little canopy setup. All good, more power to you. But if you're getting that urge as it gets a little bit closer to game time, 5 o'clock rolls around, 6 o'clock rolls around. A lot of people are going to the game. And you want to get to the game. The best way to get you to the game is buying tickets with Game Time. Know your view from your seat before you buy using the Game Time app. Get the real-time ticket prices that Game Time will show you. They'll give you the best ticket prices already listed for you there. So if you want to get to the game last minute or you want to go and buy your tickets ahead of time here, you're an LSU fan, you're wanting to make sure you have a good seat for the Oklahoma game here in the future, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Game Time,
Fast, easy, safe, effective, affordable. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code HARDCOUNT, HARDCOUNT, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, download the Game Time app, use code HARDCOUNT for $20 off your first purchase. Swipe, tap, ticket, download the Game Time app today. Again, terms apply. So the elephant in the room, we break down this game, and the question that may just be the end-all, be-all here is, can LSU run the freaking football? That's the elephant in the room. Can they? I don't know. But I look at South Carolina, not exactly like a stone wall when it comes to stopping the run game, allowing 4 yards a carry. Little eyes emoji there. Kaiden Durham will be back in this game is what it's sounding like. So I have two questions when it comes to LSU trying to run the football. One is, can you just commit to it? Like LSU, they've abandoned the run game semi-quickly. Now, I know the Ole Miss game, the numbers are skewed there because of your possessions, the way that game was flowing, but still, the numbers are the numbers, man. 128th in rushes per game in all of college football. There's 136 teams, and LSU is 128th. If you want to run the football, it's got to be an attitude thing. It's got to be a physicality thing. It's got to be a commitment thing. I also think there's something to be said for a rhythm thing for running the football. Having played running back myself, you kind of get into the flow of the game. You kind of get into the flow of the way the different runs are hitting. Like, there's a certain nuance to this thing that comes with the way the game is rolling. And if you're not committed to the run game, you don't give your running back or your offensive line a chance to get into that flow. So LSU, if we want to do that, we got to commit to the run game. The other part of this, the other question I have is, can they manufacture a run game? There's a lot of dudes with real deal speed in that wide receiver room for LSU. I wouldn't be mad at a little jet sweep action for the Tigers. I wouldn't be mad if we had a little misdirection and then inside zone back the other way with that jet sweep action across Nuss's face. Like, I think that could be a good way to live life. So it may not be so simple as our offensive line just dominates your defensive line and that's how we run the football. I think it could be a little bit more of smoke and mirrors, a little more displacement denomination. That could be the way that LSU runs the football. Like, it doesn't matter how it looks. It just matters that you do it. If you can't do it, then Dylan Stewart gets to tee off on you in third and passing. And I think we all understand that's not a good way to live your life if you're LSU, but it'd be awesome if you're South Carolina. Because South Carolina, now I promise you, they remember the way the last year went. Last year, it felt like South Carolina was about to blow the roof off Willie B. Lenora Sellers going yard there early in that game, but he didn't finish the game. And so we get to the end of the year, South Carolina's 9-3, and they lose this game with a missed field goal by South Carolina, with essentially no Lenora Sellers, their best player, absent in the second half. So we're doing revisionist history. I'm over here saying put South Carolina in. I think they're one of the 12 best teams. I digress. But what is the Lenora Sellers effect in this game? Heck, do we see Lenora Sellers just take over this thing? Because to be honest, I've sort of been waiting for that. Like, if Kentucky's the hill you want to die on for that conversation, I'd say more power to you. But this could be a world where LSU finds a way to run the football. Garrett Nussmeier's healthy, has a good day at the office. But number 16, and I guess it won't be the garnet jerseys, but the white jerseys you'd have to imagine, unless LSU goes with the home whites, I digress. South Carolina rolling out there with Lenora Sellers is just the difference. Like, hey, you have better roster, you have better line of scrimmage, you have arguably a better day at the office passing, but Lenora Sellers does a couple of plays with that Superman cape on. It's just like, dude, I don't know. They got 16, we don't. And that's kind of how this whole thing goes. Now, the battle between him and the speed at linebacker for LSU is going to be awesome to watch, because Blake Baker, you'd have to think he'll stay true to what he does, which is heat up the quarterback. We're going to go ahead and bring pressure, try and make your life just frustrating all day long, Lenora Sellers. When you do that now, if you get home, it's great. But if not, there's a lot of real estate on the back end, both to throw and run the football. If Sellers can break contain and find a little gash there, like, that could be the way that it works as well for South Carolina when it comes to how Lenora Sellers impacts this game. So there's that part of it where 16 just takes over. But I feel a lot better about him taking over if he gets a little bit of help in the run game. The Kentucky game, as a team, South Carolina averaged 3.7 yards a carry. In that game, they averaged, throwing the football downfield, 13.6 yards a pass. They were pretty explosive. That's not a coincidence. If you run the football at a reasonably effective level, it's going to demand more attention in the box. When that happens, there's more guys open downfield. You give Nick Harper a little bit of space downfield. You give Vandrevis Jacobs a little bit of space downfield. They're going to make you pay. And I know LSU is really good on the back end, but I still like South Carolina and the overall speed in that unit. if you're trying to overcommit to stop the run. So if you can get a little bit of something going on the ground, South Carolina, that would be ideal in this spot to get a win on the road. Can LSU protect Nussmeier is my other question here. Because I alluded to it a second ago, Dylan Stewart is arguably the best edge defender in college football. And I just watched an LSU offensive line get their lunch handed to them in Oxford with a fries and a drink, with Ole Miss getting home with 3. Like, I don't know what the ratio is of Ole Miss defensive linemen to Dylan Stewart, but it's probably like 2, 1.5. I don't know. Bottom line, you got to protect Nuss. Because the same thing I just said about Lenore Sellers taking over the game with what he's doing, on the ad-lib stuff and the you get pressure, you don't get home, he makes your life suck. It could be a world where Garrett Nussmeier just says, you know what, I didn't have a run game last year, and we still were pretty good at different points. We won this game last year with Kaiden Durham doing something on the ground, but we beat Ole Miss without really running the football all that well a year ago. Do we see Garrett Nussmeier maybe not take over the game, but with a bye week look more healthy, look like he has more zip on the football, be better downfield? And the story is, well, LSU, they were just better on the perimeter. Their receivers we talked about all offseason actually showed up in this spot, and Nuss was more healthy, so therefore that was the difference. Didn't matter. Nuss just took over the game. It's possible. Very possible. Have to mention special teams anytime it's a Shane Beamer football team playing. Vakari Swain has 3 punt return touchdowns already this year for South Carolina. Remember, last year, this game came down to special teams for a missed field goal for South Carolina to lose this game at home. Just something to note, something to keep an eye on. I think a blocked punt yet again in this game for South Carolina would be huge. A punt return touchdown would be huge. Death Valley at night, you want to turn down the volume there, make a special teams play for Kari Swain, or just South Carolina in general. That would be a nice little way to live life. The spot, like I said, is super intriguing. Revenge game for South Carolina. You lost this game last year. I felt like you should have won this game last year. I preseason picked South Carolina to win this game because of all those reasons and because of Lenore Sellers. Now, I said all that preseason. We're at the week of the game. Do I still feel that way? I look at LSU. They're desperate, dude. They are desperate. Back against the wall. Everyone has talked bad about them now, not just for 1 week, but a full, I guess it's been a week, 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks when the game's actually played. Brian Kelly at night in Baton Rouge has been pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and take LSU to utilize all the negative things said about them since Ole Miss, use that game as kind of the sense of urgency, the fire they need to have lit to get something going on the ground, to play with a little bit better execution. I think LSU figures it out. I think they show that sense of urgency we need from them to win this game if you're a Tiger fan. Final score, LSU wins. I think they cover. I think that number is big, and I'll go ahead and trust that people know something. 30-21, could be a backdoor situation, but LSU wins, LSU covers, and Death Valley at night plays a certain part in that game and in that result. So there you have it. LSU getting back on the right side of things. Tiger fans, man, I told you I'm not giving up on us yet, man. Not giving up. Now, if they lose that game and we're wrong, we will revisit that discussion. But a discussion that was had all September really is Billy Napier going to get fired at Florida? And the discussion didn't really go as a discussion. It was more so like, hey, when's Billy Napier going to get fired? And a lot of people you talk to circle that Texas game. If it goes poorly against Texas, very reasonable to assume that maybe Florida would make a change. Hey, last year we kind of felt this way after A&M. Y'all found a way to figure it out and finish strong. That's great. But after a certain amount of time, you're like, well, this thing feels like we know where it's headed. Post-Miami, I told y'all I'm out on Billy Napier. That was what I said. And then Florida flips the script. Cato picks that game correctly, and Florida beats Texas. And so I think it's fair for us now to say, well, if you can beat Texas, looking down the rest of your schedule, and it's not going to be an easy run by any stretch of the imagination, but can Billy Napier save his job? Only got 3 losses. 9-3 against that schedule, I don't think is anything to scoff at. Do they have to run the table for him to keep his job? Let's unpack all this right now. First things first, make sure you're subscribed. If you're a Florida fan, either subscribe because you think Billy Napier can save his job, or you want us to talk about who the next head coach is going to be in Gainesville. We'll do both of those over the course of the next few weeks, regardless, or I guess depending on rather the results that we get from the beautiful thing that is the college football season. But make sure you're locked in. Make sure you're subscribed. Appreciate y'all being dialed in. So I want to revisit what I said after the Miami game. Florida loses to Miami. Doesn't look great with how they finish. Miami's the more physical team. Looks like Miami's the better coach team. Lagway has a bad day. And I told y'all after that game, hey, listen, I'm out on Billy Napier. This is not going to be something that I think has a lot of legs to it long term. I'm out on Billy Napier. And as reasonable as I thought that take was, I got a lot of people on the socials saying, you're just now out on Billy Napier? We've been out on this guy for a while. Really? A lot of people picked him to make the college football playoff in the preseason. A lot of people had DJ Lagway as like one of the best quarterbacks in the country in the preseason. Okay, have your jokes, that's fine. But then they go beat Texas. And the reason why I was one of the last people on the Billy Napier ship as it went down, or is I think still taking on water, is because this game, them beating Texas, was always a possibility. Like we saw it at the end of last year. He was cooked after A&M. Barbecue chicken, it was done. And they go beat LSU, they beat Ole Miss, finished the year strong, beating Florida State, beating Tulane, and we're all like, are they a playoff team? Maybe so. Maybe so. And I'm not saying it's wrong to have that assessment of Florida after the end of last year. I'm not saying believing Billy Napier preseason was the wrong take. Like, heck, how are we supposed to know? How are we supposed to know that DJ Lagway wasn't going to play this well? And that was going to be a game against USF where you just straight up get outplayed and lose that. Nobody had that circled on their preseason bingo card. But the point I'm trying to make is the narrative around Billy Napier after Miami was like, we always knew it. It's like, no, that wasn't the case. It wasn't the case. And honestly, now you look down the rest of their schedule, if Florida can go out there and be spunky against Texas, like, do we see what happened at the end of last year repeat itself? Where they play inspired, Lagway starts playing better, Dallas Wilson being added into the lineup maybe just changes the entire passing game. I don't like that. That still is all on the table when you talk about Florida. So will he keep his job? Can he keep his job? Two different questions. Let's start with can he keep his job? Can he keep his job, I think, would require him going 4-1 against these 5 teams. Now, you got to beat the other teams that are on your schedule that you should be, i.e. Kentucky, i.e. Mississippi State. But they play at A&M this weekend, play Georgia, play Ole Miss, play Tennessee, play Florida State. If you go 4-1 against those 5 teams, I totally get it. 8-4, not the record you signed up for in the preseason. But if you go 4-1, you beat, 3, maybe 2 college football playoff teams? I don't think that's a stretch. You're going to fire him? I don't understand that. That, to me, would save his job if he ends up doing that. That's not me telling you that I would keep him if I was in charge, but I'm telling you I think that, whether you like it or not, would keep him as your head coach for another season given those results. So do you think he'll keep his job is the question being posed here. I personally, if it were me, I would not keep him. But if he is going to keep his job, that I think would be tough to argue with, regardless of what you think is going to happen here over the course of the next couple of seasons. People out here right now are yelling, well, JD, they beat Texas. Texas ain't really that good. Texas is fraudulent. They beat Texas. Who cares? I care. I think the people in charge probably care. Like, you're not firing Billy Napier if Texas loses their next 3 and you win your next 3. That's not how this whole thing works. They got the win when they got the win, and Texas was a ranked football team at your place. They were a 7-point favorite. Like, it doesn't matter what they do from here on out. It matters that you beat them when you beat them. So just make sure that's all clear. Now, me personally, going back to what I said about, will he, can he, would I have him as my head coach? To me, I personally have seen enough over his time at Florida where the sample size is more reliable, I think, where he has his guys in place. There is some reason to believe in them. To believe that, I've seen enough to believe that this is kind of going to be how things go. And what I mean by that is you have a lot of good moments. Enough good moments to make you believe that it could be something where you build upon it and eventually have sustained success. I personally don't think that's the world I would live in if I were in charge at Florida. Because there's so much at Florida. There's so much history. There's so much tradition. There's so much required of that place and so much available there for you from a resource perspective and from a recruiting grounds perspective to where you don't have to settle for talking yourself into an 8-4 season or a 9-3 season. Like, Florida should expect to compete for SEC championships every single year. And 8-4 isn't competing for that. Now, the schedule sucks. I hear you, but we're at a point now in year 4 where the schedule to me is less important than the results. Last year, that wasn't the case. Last year, I'm saying, well, the schedule's tough. See how they look. If they can be competitive, great. We'll move on to the next year. This is year 4. You play who you play. It's not a surprise. It is what it is. But you have a team that's back in top 20 returning production. You have a guy at quarterback who we all thought before that he was going to be awesome, yourself included if you're a Florida fan or if you're Billy Napier. This is the world we're living in. So even if they go out and beat A&M this weekend, awesome. I personally, again, have seen enough to where I would be very, very leery of making any long-term decisions or a long-term play to keep Billy Napier past this year. It would take a lot. We've seen extreme with the USF loss. I need extreme. I need 4-1 the rest of the way to think that he would be coming back. But again, if it's me, it would not be my move, personally. Last thing I'll say, though, because we've been a little bit doom and gloom here, there's something to be said, and Florida fans won't like this, but that's fine. There's something to be said for the fact that this team still bought into Billy Napier. Like, they could have thrown in the towel a long time ago. The USF game, if dudes had given up, I don't think anybody would have really faulted Florida. It would have made all the sense in the world. So whether you think he's going to be the head coach or not, whether you think that he is the right guy for the job, whether you believe in Florida right now, at least give them credit for having buy-in at a locker room level. And I know that buy-in only counts so much as you win games, but I'm impressed that the locker room in itself, even while they're losing games, there's not this finger pointing at each other. There's not this complete meltdown of a program when there probably could have been. You still see guys that are playing hard, playing for each other, and playing for Billy Napier. And I think at the very least, that needs to be acknowledged. So, Billy Napier, can he save his job? Yes. Will he? It's possible. Would I keep Billy Napier if it were up to me? The answer there is no. The answer there is no. And I don't like saying that, but that's just the way that it's gone to this point in the year, man. It is what it is. Now, I've been wrong before. About Florida, but we were wrong about a couple of teams going into this season. Penn State, Texas, Clemson, thought they would be definitely different situations than they're in right now, but thought they'd be overall like different looking products than they are right now. How were we wrong about these teams? How are we so far off the mark about these teams? I don't think there's one simple answer for all three of these. And honestly, the conversation stretches past just these three teams. Florida could be lumped in there. I think you could have a discussion as to how were we wrong about Miami being as good as they are. But when it comes to Clemson and Penn State, I want to start with those two. They are the most jarring let me phrase that. I am the most taken back by Penn State and Clemson being where they're at right now, being unranked because of what they had on paper. Like, if you were going to be wrong about Texas, it's probably an Arch Manning thing, which we'll get to here in a second. But, like, we didn't know what we didn't know about Clemson and Penn State. We assumed, I think rather fairly, that the returning production for Clemson, the returning pieces for Penn State, was going to equate to them being in a spot where they were competing for, at the very least, conference titles, definitely college football playoff berths. Win a national championship, yeah, I think it's fair, but then you talk about their path and, who's healthy, all those things. It's so tough to predict who's going to win a national championship this year. But for them to not even be, Clemson at least, not even being in the college football playoff discussion anymore. Penn State losing to a team that hadn't won a game to this point in the year, in UCLA. How are we that far off? There's a lot of different things to unpack with that. I have two main thoughts. One, returning production in college football doesn't mean what it used to mean. Because what it used to mean was if you brought back a lot of your best guys, everyone else bringing back who they have in their team, or they, lost a lot of guys to the draft. So therefore, because you brought back a lot of your best guys, that was a pretty reliable indicator as to you being good the following year. And good versus great is a different discussion, but we could at least bank on Clemson being good because they brought back a year 3 starter at quarterback. We could at least bank on Penn State being good because they brought back both their running backs, brought back Dennis Sutton. Drew Aller was serviceable, and you hope he can be better with better weapons around him, which was the thought via the portal. Returning production in college football right now doesn't mean what it used to mean. Why? Because you can go play a team like Oregon, who doesn't have the same returning production, but they go to the portal, have a couple of top 10 portal classes, got Dante Moore, who we hadn't seen before in an Oregon uniform, play at a high level. And it was very clear to me, at least, that Oregon had better players and more composure. That's the other part of this. The emotional temperature for both Penn State and Clemson is not something we could have guessed at before the year, or guessed at accurately, evidently. You would hope, and you would have hoped, that Penn State and Clemson coming into the year, it's got this feeling of, okay, here we go now. We got all our guys back. It's time for us to go do something. Kind of like what Michigan had, kind of like what Ohio State had last year. Those teams had a we're on a mission kind of attitude to them, and God help whoever's in our way this year. Whoever's going to be on the schedule, great for you, but you're going to draw the short end of the stick, right? That was kind of the thought. I didn't see that edge from Penn State against Oregon. Didn't see that edge from Clemson against Georgia Tech. Penn State had better players than UCLA. Clemson had better players than Syracuse. Didn't matter. Why? I think it's an internal thing. And I would be lying to you if I told you I knew exactly what went on behind those four walls. But based on the results, it looks a little bit like these teams either played tight or showed up and thought they were just supposed to win games because of all that they had on paper. And there's no real way to dissect that. but it's very obvious the emotional temperature for both these teams, whether it's handling the preseason conversation, whether it's handling failure, whether it's handling the success that Penn State had to this point in the year, all of that is baked into the possibilities as to why you got the lack of output that you got from both Clemson and Penn State. So to me, there's a little bit more overarching, but with Texas, no pun intended here, I think the Arch Manning discussion has kind of got a little bit off the rails, obviously, now to where we're at in the year. And we'll talk more about Arch here in a second, but I think this is a good cautionary tale for us as college football fans when it comes to preseason accolades and discussions around a guy that we hadn't even really seen play college football as the guy yet during the time that he's been a college student, much less a college football player. There's a story by Hans Christian Andersen called The Emperor's Clothing. And it reminds me a lot of the Arch Manning situation we're in right now. Story goes, a couple of swindlers show up to the Emperor and say, hey, got some new robes for you. Check this out. And the swindlers are holding nothing in their hands. Nothing. Just empty. But they're saying, hey, look at these robes. Only the true Emperor can see these robes right here. So the Emperor's like, oh, well, I'm the true Emperor, obviously. Yeah, those are great. I'll take it. But again, the whole time, holding nothing. This offseason, everyone was saying, hey, Arch is going to be great, man. Next year, number 1 overall pick. Played a little bit last year. Looked awesome, right? He looked awesome. He's going to be great. Going to be the Heisman Trophy winner. Watch this. Texas, the national championship. Watch this. And then if you even thought about being counter to that, if you even zagged a little bit where people are zigging, it's like, you don't know ball, huh? You must not be the true Emperor, huh? You don't know what you're talking about. Arch Manning's going to be great. If you don't think he's going to be great, then shame on you. You don't know what you're talking about. Matter of fact, not only are you wrong, you're stupid. You're stupid and you don't know football. It's not always that simple, y'all. It's not always that simple. This is a good example of, hey, let's check our feet a little bit before we deem somebody who has started 2 college football games the next number 1 overall pick. You're sitting here saying, JD, you are the problem. You're the media. You're the one who did it. We had him as a middle tier, number 5 in the SEC quarterback going into the season. So, do we think he'd be better than he is right now? For sure. I don't think we're lumping on the idea of him being the number 1 overall pick next year. Neither here nor there. Now, that's all bad news. That all sucks for those teams and for Texas and Penn State specifically. But the good news is you can be wrong in modern college football in the months of September and October and eventually be right in November and December. As much as it's been bad vibes for Texas and Penn State, they still both have 2 losses. Ohio State had 2 losses last year. The one loss they couldn't have, they had at the end of the last year to a mid-Michigan team. Then what happened? Turned it on, responded the right way, got hot in the college football playoff, won the whole thing. So I'm not predicting that for Texas and Penn State. Full transparency, I don't think either of those teams will make the college football playoff, but it's not impossible. And so the thing here for both those teams, Clemson's out of it, just to be real about this, but the thing about both those teams is if you respond the right way to this failure and you continue to evolve and you play your best ball when it matters, it's all right there for you, man. It's all right there for you. So we were wrong in the preseason. We're wrong in September. We're wrong in October about these teams. But Texas and Penn State, as much as we don't believe in y'all, go prove us wrong. It's all right there for you. There's never been more opportunity in modern college football after losing than there is right now. And Ohio State is a great blueprint for that. So we were wrong. We were embarrassingly wrong. But even with that being said, there's a chance for those teams to have the last laugh. It would surprise me, but I'm surprised they're as bad as they are right now. So maybe it's a little double surprise action for both those teams cooked up for the rest of the college football world. Now, staying in the vein of Arch Manning, I want us to discuss a headline that I saw today over on The Athletic. And The Athletic does great work. It's not me knocking The Athletic, but the headline that I read was, is Arch Manning college football's first flop? Whoa. Strong headline. And headlines are meant to grab attention, so I understand all that. But do we understand what a flop means? Flop is career defining. My opinion, Arch is not very good right now. Through 5 weeks of the college football season for Texas, 6 weeks of the college football season, 5 games for Texas, Arch is not very good right now. Fact. Arch has not lived up to hype so far. Opinion and fact there. But a flop is career. Arch Manning is a flop after playing 5 games? Can we all just relax a little bit here? Can we just relax before we say he's a flop relative to the rest of his career? Arch has started 5 games. Yet again, I've mentioned that here. He has, through those 5 games, 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 5 rushing touchdowns, and completed 60% of his passes, playing against, really, to be honest here, 2 formidable opponents. Josh Allen, his first year at Wyoming, threw 15 picks, completed 56% of his passes. Was Josh Allen a flop through that first year of his college football season at Wyoming? Doing okay in the NFL right now. Again, that first year, I'm sure for Josh Allen, wasn't like his favorite year ever playing ball. There's a reason why he was at Wyoming to begin with. Late bloomer, evolved, all those things. I don't think we can define Arch Manning's career after 5 games. Joe Burrow never saw the field, never any meaningful way at Ohio State. Was he a flop for not playing at Ohio State after getting recruited to play at Ohio State? I don't think so. I don't think that's how it worked. Didn't even have a great first year at LSU. Like, Spencer Rattler wasn't great after getting benched at Oklahoma. Was he a flop? NFL quarterback right now. Had a pretty decent career at South Carolina, I would say. It's not the same, though, JD, right? It's not the same. Arch Manning is this and that. He's supposed to be the next great one, isn't he? Yeah, you're right. It's not the same. It's not the same because he got hyped as a Heisman Trophy winner and the number 1 pick in the preseason. If Arch Manning had a different last name, I know we talk about how much praise he would get and all those things. If Arch Manning had a different last name, I think we're having a different discussion around Texas in general. Like, hey, quarterback play, not nearly good enough. 100% true. The problems at Texas, though, that I'm seeing are Arch and then some other stuff. Like, for Texas to be 3-2 right now, and their 2 losses being against 2 actual opponents in Florida and Ohio State, I think it's a matter of the O-line not being that great. I think that the receivers got to step it up. Defense getting blown off the ball against Florida is a problem in and of itself. I'm not here telling you that Arch is going to flip the switch and be amazing and be the best Manning ever. I'm not saying that. I'm not even saying Texas make the college football playoff this year. But I am saying it's been 5 games. Can we give it a little bit longer than that before we define his whole career? I said let's give it 5 games. We'll define what he is right now in college football, which is, again, not a very good quarterback. And I think he's a lower 3rd tier of the SEC when it comes to quarterbacks right now. But defining his career as a flop, that to me is a little bit rich. Narratives change in college football so freaking fast, y'all. Let's be a little bit more sloth than golden retriever. Have you seen those sloths, Sid? Shout out Ice Age. Just moving slow, kind of taking in the finer things of life. Golden retrievers, it's like squirrel, ball, walk, mailman, this, that, up, down, all over the place. It changes so fast. And that's how the college football narratives move, is more golden retriever. But how many of those narratives last? Last year, Notre Dame loses to NIU. Marcus Freeman's not the guy for the job at Notre Dame. He's not. We've seen it now against Marshall, seen it against NIU. He's not the guy. The sloth, though, is like, oh, I don't know. See what happens to Notre Dame. They play for a national championship. Marcus Freeman is not going anywhere in South Bend. Ohio State loses to Michigan yet again. Ryan Day, get him out of there. He's the wrong guy for the job at Ohio State. If they lose Tennessee, he's fired, this, that, the other. Ohio State wins the national championship. These narratives are moving all the time, y'all. Right now, Arch Manning is not very good. He's a bust. He's this. He's that. He's a flop. Maybe, but it's been 5 games. Let's just give it a little bit longer here before we define Arch Manning as college football's first flop, which we could have a discussion about first flop in general if we want to do that, but neither here nor there. Let's give it some time here. Let's give it some time. I think Arch Manning next year will be a little bit more to talk about. I don't think there's any discussion about him coming back or not next year. He should be back in college next season. Full stop. But let's give it a little bit longer. Let's give him a few more starts before we just define the guy's career. Neither here nor there. So Arch is going to play in Red River, contrary to something unforeseen here. But is John Mateer going to play in Red River? Reports, rumors, rumblings, the buzz is starting to percolate that John Mateer is pushing to get back for Red River. If you're a college football sicko, make sure you are subscribed. If John Mateer plays in Red River, the college football sickos had it first. Because if you remember correctly, about a week ago, we had a video on this channel talking about a message board post over at Texags saying, hey, listen, I was in the Chipotle line tonight behind John Mateer, and I heard that he told the tortilla presser he's going to play. It's a message board rumor, okay? It's out there. It's great. Message boards have crazy things said all the time. That's the reason Message Board Geniuses exists, the Twitter account. But then you had a selfie from the tortilla presser, allegedly, posted with John Mateer, which gives that more validity. So that's cool if there's a report out there that he might or may not play. College football community, college football sickos have had this for some time, right? We had it first. Other thing I want to make sure is said out loud. I don't think we'll get anything concrete about John Napier playing or not playing before it's like a game time thing. Like, I know there's going to be an injury report out there and all that. That's all well and good. I think it'll be a thing where you're watching the lead up to Red River, sitting there on your couch, fired up for the game, and hearing about John Napier trying to warm up, and then whoever's doing the sideline for that game will say, John Napier is going to be a go today, or John Napier is not going to play today. They tried to warm up, didn't work. Now, I see some folks from the Texas circles saying, well, didn't we do this already with Billy Gabriel? He's warming up, he's going to try to play, and then doesn't play, and Oklahoma loses 49-0. This is not the same as that. Billy Gabriel was trying to get back from a concussion. John Napier had surgery on his throwing hand, a game in which he finished against Auburn and broke his hand in the first quarter. Like, this is not the same thing. Your head and your throwing hand are not at all the same thing when it comes to trying to get back via injury. When you have a concussion, it's a little bit more cut and dry. I think Oklahoma probably knew throughout the entirety of that week that Billy Gabriel wasn't going to be a goal for them in that Red River. Now, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. If John Napier is given the decision, hey, John, how you feel? You able to go? He's going to play if it's up to him. It's how he's wired. And what I just said a second ago, he had this injury in the first quarter against Auburn. And people say, well, adrenaline, and yeah, that's why he was dialed up to play, and he was good. It didn't hurt because he was so ramped up. He still went in at halftime, came out at halftime, and finished that game. And it wasn't because it felt good. Because the guy loves football. He's a competitive maniac. It's also Texas. You commit to Oklahoma to playing games like this against that school. If he's able to go, he's going to go. If there's even a chance that he goes, and it's up to John Napier, he's going to go. So the question isn't, does John Napier want to play if it's up to him? The question is, if you're Oklahoma, like, what percent of John Napier are you getting? Because 75% John Napier, I told you, I'll still take that every single day of the week. I'd love to have him out there. But how effective is he? Plus, looking down the barrel of your schedule, I want John Napier healthy in November. If John Napier trots out there against Texas and injures it in the first half, it's going to feel real bad. It's going to be I guess we probably should have let him sit, huh? I guess this was a bad idea. I guess we should have protected himself from himself. I don't know. Just something to think about here. Now, if he does play, though, I just want this out there. I don't think you can quantify the emotional boost that would give to a football team. And it sounds funny saying that out loud because you're saying, JD, emotions in college football, just spot the ball. It's not about how you feel and feelings and all that. I get it. I totally understand that. But if your dude is battling back from an injury that you were told he's supposed to take like at least 3, maybe 4 weeks to recover from, he's out there in 2, you can't tell me there's not a little extra surge from the offensive line on 4th and 1 when it's called quarterback run for John Napier. You can't tell me when it's, you're down by 3 and Texas has the ball and you're the defense in the 4th quarter and it's 2 minutes to go in the game. You don't maybe battle a little bit harder, a little extra juice when you prepare for that game as the defense to get John Napier the football back. I don't know. I think the emotional temperature for Oklahoma is something to at least keep a pulse on. If John Napier does play, I think you'd see inspired Oklahoma, which inspired Oklahoma in this game, in that rivalry setting, you'll take it every single time. Every single time. Now, that's the John Napier side of this. But what's being missed in Red River? Because I think anytime you have a big game with big names in it, big logos, there's the headlines that are out there. And those headlines have some validity to them. But anytime there's big headlines, the smaller, maybe as important or more important headlines get missed. What's being missed in Red River? For Texas, man, I think what's being missed is that Arch might have just had that pressure bubble burst. And what I mean by that is how much pressure you think has Arch felt since the Ohio State game? Probably a lot. Even before the Ohio State game, by nature of how he played, probably felt a lot of pressure. But Arch has heard for the better part of the last month plus, he's not very good. He's not this, he's that. You got people calling him college football's first flop. And then you lose your second game on the road to Florida. I wonder if losing that second game doesn't just give Arch Manning a little bit of that like fudge it mentality. Hey, whatever, say what you want to say about me. You said it all now. I lost to Ohio State. I lost to Florida on the road. But Arch had a couple of throws in that game where I was like, okay, that's a little bit different from Arch. Like the one where he steps up in the pocket, evades the defensive lineman, throws it downfield to Ryan Wingo. I was like, okay, that might be a little bit of a confidence booster. I wonder if him losing to Florida and all the extra headlines piling on, he's just like callous to it. And that'd be kind of quickly to get calloused to that kind of conversation that's so negative about you. But if the pressure bubble bursts for Arch and the upstairs part of this for him, the mental part of this for him, isn't as much of a anchor and such of a weight vest for him playing, like we could see a different Arch Manning in Red River because of how bad it's been to him and for him this point in the year. I also think we look at Oklahoma, man, go watch that Auburn game. The Oklahoma defense was incredible. Absolutely incredible. One of the best defenses in college football, definitely one of the best pass rushers in college football. But Jackson Arnold just straight up missed on a couple of deep ones, dude. There was money on the table, and Auburn was not able to cash in. Which, if I'm Oklahoma, that game plan we had against Auburn where we're daring Arnold to beat us with his arm, I take that exact same approach against Arch, just personally. The exact same approach. So if that's the case, what does that mean for Arch? There will be ripe fruit to be picked in the pass game. There will be plays downfield. So if you can hit a couple of explosives early, talk about confidence, talk about getting a little extra juice, a little bit extra edge to you. In the first half, that wouldn't be a bad situation if you're Texas and if you're Arch Manning. Neither here nor there. Michael Hawkins Jr., and the discussion around him, I think, if he ends up playing for you in this game, I think it is being wildly under-talked about. If Michael Hawkins Jr. starts this game, guess what? That'll be his second Red River he started in 2 years. He's the more experienced player in this game relative to quarterbacks playing. Don't think that matters? You don't think that maybe trotting out there at the Texas State Fair with the crowd split, the emotion, the energy, all those things, that matters when you're familiar with that. I promise you it does, to have a little bit more composure to you. Now, will Michael Hawkins Jr. be the most composed player in this game? It'd be nice if you're Oklahoma, but I think you feel better about that being possible with him having played in this game before. Also, he is not what you had last year at quarterback when it comes to what you expect from Michael Hawkins Jr. Because you see the name, you see the jersey, you see him out there and you say, oh boy, here we go. This was the same guy that couldn't get anything going for us offensively last year. Very one-dimensional. First read wasn't there. He had to run for his life. Well, some of that is what he had around him. The offensive line may not be perfect yet at Oklahoma. It's better than what it was last year. The receivers maybe not be the best in the country. I think it's still more than good enough to win you football games. I'll still take Deion Burks, Jaron Kanik. I'll definitely take them what you had over last year's infirmary was in that position group. Like, overall, Oklahoma is just better set up for success because Michael Hawkins Jr. has had longer in the system, or has had longer playing college football, has a better system, a better OC in Ben Arbuckle, and they're more healthy on the perimeter. All those things make me think that Michael Hawkins Jr., relative to last year, very, very different player, very different situation. So make sure that's said out loud when you talk about Oklahoma. You can still get something done offensively even if you don't have John Mateer in the game. It'll not be the same kind of showing from Michael Hawkins Jr. And him having been in this game, again, probably counts for something when you break it all down. So I want to finish with this, saying on the quarterback train of thought. I think this is very quietly a massive weekend for the Ohio State-Michigan game because both those teams breaking in new quarterbacks, Julian Sayin for Ohio State, Bryce Underwood for Michigan. But are they really being broken in right now? Because I just saw Ohio State against Minnesota for the first time all season, in my opinion, say, okay, Julian, the car is yours, brother. Drive it. And what does he do but go for over 300 yards, a couple of bombs downfield to Carnell Tate, a couple of shots to Jeremiah Smith that were just money in the freaking pocket. And then you had Bryce Underwood, too, against Illinois, go for 270. Had a couple of downfield shots that he looked good taking as well. So I think this weekend is super important for Michigan playing USC and Ohio State playing Illinois. Both games on the road now when it comes to the overall ceiling that both these quarterbacks can accomplish. Because at this point in the year, we're in October, the floor is pretty much set. Like, could there be a gutter ball game out there for both these guys where you have a 2-turnover game from Sayin or Underwood? Sure. But I think for the most part, we have a good gauge as to how they're going to be for the rest of the season. The floor is set. But when you go out there against Illinois, you go out there against USC, I'm curious to see who's able to grow the most from this point forward. Because going into that game, whether it's Sayin or Underwood, it's going to be crucial to have the big dog level of confidence, if you catch my drift there. Like, I don't want Julian Sayin trying to figure out what he is in this offense when we go play in Ann Arbor. Same thing for Bryce Underwood. I don't want him, wondering what kind of version he's going to be given or what kind of game plan he's going to be given with him going to go play against Ohio State. So I think as much as you want to go see both these guys spin it against these teams this weekend and go see them have great numbers and build their confidence and say, yeah, heck yeah, beat your chest, brother. You got the keys to the offense now for both sides. Go ball out. That's 100% something I would ask for. But I honestly, if I'm a fan base for either side of this, I wouldn't hate if we saw either of them have like a shaky half before this game or a shaky game before this game, so long as you win. Because I think there's something to be said for a little bit of adversity before you play in the game. Like if Bryce Underwood trots out there against Ohio State and it's a tough first half, it's tough sledding, he misses on a couple of open throws downfield. If Ohio State allows that, he's got a strip sack that doesn't go his way. I don't want that to be the first time his cage gets rattled. Same thing for Julian Sayin. I don't want him for the first time ever feeling that pressure when we're playing Michigan and it's for us to go have a shot to punch our ticket to the Big Ten title. I don't want that kind of setting for either of these quarterbacks. So if you have a little bit of adversity, as long as you win, you could be better for it. Could very much so be better for it. Now, there's going to be some high pressure on Bryce Underwood already because of the fact that Michigan's dropped a game, and you got a stretch here where you play at USC, then you play Washington. How he handles this pressure will tell us a lot about the guy, because if you go 2-0 against those teams, you should feel pretty good about winning the rest of your games relative to the challenges they present compared to like USC and Washington. But the goal for me, if I'm Michigan, get to Ohio State, the Ohio State game, I suppose, get to Ann Arbor playing Ohio State with a record of 9-2 or better. We'll take 10-1, obviously, but 9-2 against a team that you've beaten semi-routinely over the course of the last couple of seasons, awesome. We'll take that every single day of the week if we're Michigan. So the pressure that is ahead of him to perform to get him to that spot, that's the mission here. That is the mission. Now for Julian Sayin, I think it's fair to, I don't know if leery is the right word, but I think it's fair to question, hey, he's not really an Ohio guy. He's from that C.J. Stroud tree in terms of being a West Coast guy. And, we kind of want this rivalry to mean something to our guys. Like, that's something you heard a lot when Ohio State first started losing to Michigan was, well, I want guys from Ohio that grew up around the rivalry, that hate that other side with every fiber of their being. And I get that. I hear that. But here's my thing, man. When you've lost as many times in a row as you lost to Michigan, I like Julian Sayin being removed from this rivalry. I liked him not being burdened emotionally from what the last couple of years have been for Ohio State. As far as I can tell, Julian Sayin's walking in there his first time ever starting against Michigan, and he's like, this is a new thing for me, new experience for me. I'm not trying to make up for what last year was and the year before that. Like, I'm walking in with this rivalry and fresh eyes looking at it. And I think that in itself, not carrying the weight of previous rivalries, will only allow him to play more free. And playing free at the quarterback position allows you to just make better decisions, make bigger throws, all those things. So this weekend, what I want to see from both guys, cut it loose. Cut it loose, and then what does your version of the offense look like going into the month of October and leading into the rest of your season, where ultimately this game will be the crescendo for both of these guys' first years as the guy at their respective spots. So big weekend, big learning stretch here for both of us, for both these guys when it comes to us, the college football public, but very, very excited to see how they progress and what their ceiling is from this point forward. I think we know the floor, but what's the ceiling for Julian Sayin and Bryce Underwood? Should be fun, man. Should be fun. And it's always fun with y'all making the show what it is, man. So we appreciate the heck out of y'all for dialing in. Hey, before we check out of here, Kaiden, I want to get your thoughts on this, man. We covered a lot of ground. We covered some Arch Manning conversation. We covered some discussion around the national championship race. We covered some discussion around Julian Sayin and Bryce Underwood. I want to just lob this over to you and just get your take on maybe the most interesting part of this show, something maybe you want to go back to and camp out on for a second, or just something that I want to make sure we give you some space here to work a little bit on the mic, if you catch my drift, man. What are your thoughts on this thing overall relative to the topics we talked about?
Yeah, I really wanted to get this shirt off today on the episode, so appreciating you just giving me the opportunity. No, I think the most interesting thing for me from today's show was about Arch Manning and him being college football's first flop, because I think when you talk about the NIL era that now exists in college football, we are going to have these kids that are flops and busts now on a level that hasn't happened before at the college level. Everyone thinks of Jamarcus Russell, some of the biggest NFL draft picks that have been top picks that haven't panned out, that have been in that spotlight. Well, now we have college kids in this spotlight where when you once used to be a recruit and recruiting wasn't followed quite as nationally, and the 5 stars could maybe commit to a school and all of a sudden not pan out and we don't really hear anything from them. All of a sudden now these kids are going to have that top billing. They're going to be known. If Bryce Underwood wasn't good this year, they'd be having the same conversations, because now all of a sudden a bunch of fans know about how much he got paid and him flipping from LSU to Michigan. So I think the concept of the college football flop is interesting. Arch being the first one, though, if he doesn't pan out, I agree with you. Still a lot of runway to go. If he doesn't pan out, though, I think he'd be the first of the NIL era, and it'd be a hard one to top just given the last name. But when I hear college football flop, these are the names I think of. I have a couple written down.
Okay, here we go.
DJU is one of the top ones.
Sure.
5-star, number 2 quarterback in the 2020 class. And again, like, it has to do with the name. Like, that had become a household name across college football. Everyone closely followed his journey from St. John Bosco to Clemson to Oregon State and then FSU. Like, I think him touching so many parts of the country and so many different teams kind of added to the lore. Didn't live up to that billing. I think the number one guy I think of when I think of a college football flop is Tate Martell because he was so popular. Like, when I was in high school and, like, just following the recruiting stuff, he was such a big name. He was on the Netflix show. Like, everyone knew about him. He was popular on Instagram. He was a 4-star. He was the number 5 guy in the 2017 class when it comes to quarterbacking. But again, like, that has a lot to do, like, the DJU with the name of it all. And it's just very, like, you're a known guy that didn't make it. But then you have Hunter Johnson, a name that doesn't ring a bell. 5-star, number 2 quarterback in the class of 2015, I think. 17 maybe. Guy that went to Clemson, didn't do anything. Northwestern, went back to Clemson, like, just forgotten. And then the same with a Blake Barnett. Like, that's a guy who was the top quarterback, one of the top quarterbacks, a 5-star guy, goes to Alabama, leaves Alabama, and, like, is forgotten about. So I think there's, like, 2 definitions of it as far as how you were as a recruit, what you were supposed to be and what you were, and then the name of who you are and how known you are. I think that all now comes together, and we're in a new era where the college football flop is going to be a thing. And if Arch doesn't pan out, there's time. But I think he would be the first modern era flop that combines all of those things. We know who you are. We know how much money you're making. We know how good you were supposed to be. And now we know when you didn't live it up, and there's a lot more pressure there.
And we all have just so much more access to these kids. Like Blake Barnett, starts the first game against USC, and then Jalen Hurts takes over, and Blake Barnett's not really ever heard from at that level ever again. Goes to USF and, does a couple of things there. But, like, if Arch Manning got benched, it would be everyone DMing the kid, everyone just going after him on social media. Like, social media obviously existed in 2015 or 2016 whenever Blake Barnett was at Alabama, but it wasn't quite dialed up to the level it is right now and quite as insane as it is right now, though I'm sure there was still some kickback on that side of things. The growth of the sport and how popular it is has coincided with arguably the most popular college football player of all time relative to how much he hasn't played. So it's a funky spot to be in, man, if you're Arch. But I'm hoping at a certain point, even if you were a third party, like if you're an Oklahoma fan, I'm sure you're relishing in this. But if you're a Virginia fan and you're seeing Arch Manning struggle, at some point in time, you think the human element kicks in. And you're like, man, I hope he can get it together. For his sake, I hope he can get it together based on what's been said about the kid.
Yeah, Blake Barnett wasn't on Warby Parker commercials during that first game he played for in Alabama. You know what I mean? So the spotlight's big. It's huge, and there's going to be pros and cons to it. All the cons are these kids having to see it on their phones, block out the noise a lot earlier in their careers than they would when you go to the pros. It's normally like, okay, like you're gonna go to the NFL, you're gonna be under some spotlight that you've never been in before. Not anymore. Arch can't go anywhere in Austin. You know what I mean? So that's one interesting side of it, and that's the downfall. But the plus side is if Arch turns this around, it's going to be just as compelling as these stories we get every year in the NFL. Baker Mayfield, count it out. Look at him now. He's probably like an MVP candidate, the level he's playing at for Tampa Bay. Sam Darnold. There have been these comeback stories in the NFL that exist, and now there's a lane for them to exist in college because it is so public. If Arch turns this around and is the number 1 pick next year, lives anywhere up to close to what people had him billed as this year, it's going to be super compelling. It's going to be awesome, and I think it's just going to add to the maturity from the neck up of these kids when they do go to the next level because they're put in now all of a sudden a mini professional setting from every aspect, from the spotlight to the play calling to every little thing, every detail of college football. There's pros and cons of all the changes, but bottom line is the kids that do make it out of this and go to the next world, they're going to be level, are going to be as ready as they've ever been. So I'm excited for Arch. He has a long runway ahead of him. It's shocking how not good he's been. We've talked about it ad nauseum on this show, but plenty of time left for the guy. I'd be curious to see how the push-pull is with his last name now with Steve Sarkisian, the fan base, the pressure from higher-ups. It's a complex mess and a lot going on, but I'll be with popcorn front row ready to see it.
Locked in. Yeah, it's not like he's at FAU. No, not at FAU, but like he's at a place that is one, a major city, but two, a brand in Texas that is synonymous with college football. So the plot thickens, but good stuff, Cato. For those of y'all listening on podcast too, Kaiden's shirt was on the whole time. He got the fit out there for the people. So he not a shirtless segment, though. That might be something we have to explore here in the near future.
I wasn't wearing the King's clothing, the King's cloth. It's just normal
traffic,
clothes.
I don't know. The comment section wants what it wants to. I don't know. Again, I'm not lobbying for that, but I'm just telling you. Now you've planted that seed, and it's I don't know. It's an intense audience. So
get out of here.
We'll see what happens from there. But Cato, great stuff, man. Appreciate you making the show what it is, making the show go, and appreciate y'all being dialed in. Make sure you're subscribed. College football, nothing but college football year round, and we appreciate y'all for being sickos like us on this show that follow this sport, love the sport all year round. All right, so we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We will keep this party rolling. We will see y'all